Hello everyone, Kevin Holcomb here. I've been in the mortgage industry for almost 9 years going on now, and I have helped tons of people buying houses and refinancing. So, today's video, we're going to talk about what happens when you want to cancel your escrow. You found a house, you want to buy it, but then you find some stuff about it you don't like so much. What happens then? So, here we go. Today I figured I would shoot kind of guerrilla style outside because it is gorgeous. The birds are singing. A lot of songbirds here in North Carolina, and it is awesome to hear. The humidity is very high, hence my luscious curly locks. I never thought I had growing up in California, where it was always just so dry you felt like your skin was going to fall off. Anyway, so in today's video, as I talked about in the intro, this is something that does come up. There's a reason why people have a lot of inspections and things that happen when they buy a house. So here's the scenario. You find the house, you put your offer in the house, it gets accepted, you're totally jazzed. Now you say, okay, now what? Well, now there's a lot of things that have to take place, but what we're talking about today specifically is something called your contingency periods and your earnest money deposit. Now in California, that's what we call it. Now in other parts of the country, I've noticed, especially when I was buying my house in North Carolina, they would call it something different. They'd call it like a good faith deposit. But in California specifically, you would typically put down about 1% of the purchase price. And that part can be negotiated with the seller, saying, if you're buying a $300,000 house, they're going to say, we want, $3,000 to $5,000 as an earnest money deposit. Now, why does that deposit exist? A, it shows that you're serious in buying that house, that you want it because you're willing to put some skin in the game. That's usually what it is, and it's actually something to help protect the seller. Not really protect them, but it's an incentive on the seller. If, let's say, you go all the way down the line and then you cancel at the very end, now the seller lost out on all that time for someone who wanted to buy the property. They get to keep your earnest money deposit. So how it works is in your contract, and what your agent is actually going to work out with you is that there's going to be these contingency dates. So after their offer is accepted, you have a certain amount of time to get your earnest money deposit into escrow, because escrow is the one that's going to hold it. It doesn't go directly to the seller. Escrow is the one that holds it. Now, it's going to go to them. They're going to hold it. And you have typically 17 days is either going to be your financing contingency, meaning you have to have full loan approval on your loan, or your appraisal contingency, meaning an appraisal needs to be completed and you need to know what the value of the house is and if there's any extra work that needs to be done. Those are your main contingencies, and they're usually about 17 days, but that part's all negotiable, and it just depends on what's on the contract, so you need to talk to your agent about that. Like I said, look, you have a certain amount of time. Usually you have shorter amounts of time to actually have the property inspected. So that's when you get a home inspection. And what the home inspector is going to do is they're looking for everything that could possibly go wrong in the near future, what could be wrong now that needs to be worked on, all sorts of things. But they look for everything. It's their job to give you a full list report on everything going on with the house. So you have to get that done as soon as possible. You really do. You don't want to wait on it because you don't want to waste your time. You don't want to waste the seller's time. I was talking to my wife because we currently have a deal where the clients decided that they wanted to cancel their escrow, which is not uncommon. It does happen. But this is the second time we've gotten pretty far down the road on a purchase where we're coming up on our closing date, and they basically pull the plug at the last minute and say, we don't want to buy this house. So what does that mean? If you're past your contingency dates, let's say you're past the 17 days, the agent really wants those contingencies lifted, saying, you have to perform. Like, you need to have a loan approval. We need to know that you're moving forward on this house. So the listing agent will typically want to release contingencies, they call it. Basically saying, from that point forward, either you're buying the house or you're going to sacrifice your EMD for eating up the seller's time. So that's what's on the table. So that $3,000 to $5,000 or more that you put into escrow, that will go to the seller if you're past your contingency periods and they've been lifted and you don't end up buying the house. And it's just a way of the seller getting something for their time, because you've been in escrow for 20 days at this point, maybe longer. They've had the house off the market because you're in contract to buy it, and they're missing out on that. So it's something to be aware of. The seller doesn't have to take your EMD, but they are entitled to it based on the contract. So that's just something to be aware of. But if you do your home inspection, let's say you do it right after you get your offer accepted, and you want to know what's going to, you want to know what's wrong with the house, if there's anything wrong with it, you get that report and you see that there's too much stuff that needs to be done. Typically you can cancel escrow at that point, as long as you make sure you check your contract and check with your agent. You can cancel escrow and say, look, there's too much stuff on this house that needs to be fixed. We don't want to do it. And usually you can cancel escrow and you can get that money back, and then you move on to the next house. But those dates are really important, because I've heard lots of stories of people going way down the road all the way towards the finish line and then canceling, and then being surprised that they didn't get their earnest money deposit back, because it's a big chunk of money. And it's just, it could come to ignorance or just not knowing these things. So it's good information to have. So anyway, that's it for me today. I'll just put any comments down below if you have any questions about any of this stuff, or what you want to see for future content. The market's doing some very interesting things, because we're coming up on summer, but not a lot of houses have hit the market yet. A lot of people are out of school, like kids are out of school. It's usually a time where parents will be looking to move. So it's kind of an interesting time. If you have any questions, comment down below. Please subscribe for more content, and I'll check you guys in the future. Thanks for watching. Peace.